For 34 years, I was the one who stayed. I watched 18 siblings pack their bags. I watched them walk down the aisle. I watched them drive away to start their own lives. And every single time I turned around, walked back into the big house, and folded another load of laundry that wasn't mine. They called me the Cinderella Duggar. They said I was the stay, at-home daughter. The world wondered if I was stuck, or if I was simply too scared to leave. But I wasn't scared. I was waiting. And today, the waiting is over. If you are listening to this, I am no longer in Arkansas. I am 400 miles away, standing on my own front porch, looking at a sunset that belongs only to me. There are no bunk beds here. There are no chore lists on the wall. For the first time in my life, the house is quiet. And in that silence, I finally found Jana. This is the story of how I packed up 3 decades of duty and moved to Nebraska to find my freedom. You know, people used to joke that I was running the big house. They weren't entirely wrong. While my sisters were picking out wedding venues, I was picking out paint colors for the guest room. While my brothers were buying engagement rings, I was buying seeds for the garden. I loved it. I truly did. I loved being the fun aunt. I loved organizing the pantry. I loved the feeling of being needed. But there were nights, quiet nights, when the house was finally asleep. I would sit on the back porch swing, listening to the crickets, and I would wonder, is this it? Is my purpose just to be the helper? The support system, the background character in everyone else's movie? I watched Jill leave, then Jessa, then Jinger, then Joy. Every time a moving truck pulled into the driveway, a piece of my heart went with it. I stood on that porch waving goodbye so many times my arm used to ache, and then I would turn around, walk back inside, and empty the dishwasher. Segemen T20, the public pressure 40 and 30 800 direction a bit frustrated, weary, addressing the rumors directly. And then there was the noise, the constant, unrelenting noise from the outside world. Why isn't Jana married? Is she being held hostage? Maybe she's secretly courting Tim Tebow? Okay, that one made me laugh. It's hard to explain what it feels like to have millions of strangers debating your love life or lack of one. Every time I was seen standing next to a man, the headlines would explode. I felt like a specimen under a microscope. Look, she smiled at him! Wedding bells! The truth was, I wasn't desperate. I wasn't waiting for a savior to rescue me from my dad's house. I was waiting for a partner. I saw what my sisters went through. I saw the struggles. I saw the heartbreak. I decided a long time ago that I would rather be single and peaceful than married and lonely. So I built a wall, a high, polite, smiling wall, and I stayed behind T3, the secret garden I 800 to 1130 direction, warm, passionate, talking about her hobbies, skills. To survive the waiting, I created my own world. My garden, my renovations. If I couldn't build a family yet, I would build things. I learned to use power tools. I learned to lay tile. I learned how to wire a light fixture. There is something so satisfying about demolition. Taking a sledgehammer to an old wall, crash! It was my therapy. When I was frustrated with the rules, I painted a wall. When I was lonely, I planted hydrangeas. My hands were always busy. If my hands were busy, my heart didn't have time to hurt. I turned the greenhouse into my sanctuary. It was the one place on the property that felt like mine. But deep down, I knew it wasn't really mine. It was still on my dad's land. It was still under his roof. C-Cement 40 meeting Stephen 1130 to 1500 direction te shy smiling voice. The tone shifts to something lighter and sweeter. Then, Nebraska happened. I had known the Wissmann family for years. We saw them at conferences. We visited their home. Stephen was always there, quiet, kind, hardworking. He didn't need to be the loudest voice in the room. He didn't need to be the center of attention. I remember one Christmas visit. We were all sitting around their living room, singing hymns. I looked over at him. He was holding one of his nieces, making her laugh. He looked up. Our eyes met. And for the first time, I didn't look away. It wasn't a lightning bolt. It was a slow sunrise. We started talking, not about courting, not about rules, just talking. He asked me what I liked. He asked me about my garden. He asked me about my projects. He didn't treat me like Jana Duggar, the famous daughter. He treated me like a woman who had interesting things to say. As Segmenti 5, the decision to move 1500 to 1800s direction serious. The turning point. A bit scary, the relationship grew. And then the question came. Not will you marry me? Set that came later. But where will we live? Stephen's life is in Nebraska. His work, his family, his roots. I knew what that meant. If I married him, I couldn't stay in the big house. I couldn't live down the street in a house my dad bought. I would have to leave. Really leave? 400 miles? 7 hours? The thought terrified me. I had never paid a bill. I had never lived in a house without a chaperone. I had never been truly independent. Arkansas was my safety net. Nebraska was the great unknown. But then I looked at my life. I was 34. I looked at the garden I had planted in someone else's yard. And I realized if I don't jump now, I never will. I have to go. Padababababik. It happened in June. I was visiting Nebraska. Stephen took me for a walk on his property. The sun was setting, that golden hour light that makes everything look like a painting. We walked past the old barn. The grass was tall. It smelled like sweet hay in summer. He stopped near a big oak tree. He looked nervous. He was twisting his ring. Jana, he said, I don't want to build a life without you. He got down on one knee. He pulled out a ring. It wasn't flashy. It was elegant. Classic, just like him. Will you marry me? I looked at the ring. I looked at the house in the distance. I looked at him. For the first time in my life, I didn't think about what my dad would say. I didn't think about the cameras. I just thought about us. Yes, I whispered, and then louder, yes! He stood up and hugged me. I buried my face in his shoulder. I felt safe. Finally, a Segment 70. News 21 and 30, 2500ers, direction tense. Quiet. The feeling of walking on eggshells. The drive back to Arkansas was the longest of my life. I had a ring on my finger, but I also had a secret that was going to shake the foundation of the big house. I wasn't just getting married. I was leaving. I sat Mom and Dad down in the living room, the same room where we filmed hundreds of hours of TV. I showed them the ring. Mom cried. She hugged me. But then came the hard part. We're going to live in Nebraska, I said. The room went quiet. Dad looked at me. He didn't yell. He just frowned. Nebraska, he said. That's a long way, Jana. Who's going to manage the garden? Who's going to help with the girls? My heart sank. Even in my moment of joy, the first question wasn't, are you happy? It was, who will do your job? That silence, it confirmed everything. I wasn't just a daughter. I was an employee and I was quitting Segment 80, the younger girls, 2500, 2080, 30 dies direction, heartbreaking. Voice cracks a little, talking about the sisters she raised die. The hardest goodbye wasn't my parents. It was the girls. Johanna, Jennifer, Jordan, Josie. I didn't just share a room with them. I raised them. I braided their hair. I taught them to read. I held them when they had nightmares. They are my sisters, but they feel like my daughters. I gathered them in our bedroom, the room with the 4 bunk beds. I told them I was moving. Josie started crying immediately. But who's going to do my hair? Jardine just sat on her bed, staring at the floor. She didn't say a word. That hurt more than the crying. I hugged them all. We sat in a pile on the floor, tangled limbs and wet cheeks. I'm not leaving you, I promised. I'm just moving houses. You can come visit. I promise. But we all knew it would be different. The daily magic, the morning whispers, that was ending. Packing up 34 years of life is strange. I started pulling things out from under my bed. Old journals, sketches of garden plans I never built, a dried flower from Jill's wedding bouquet, a note Jessa wrote me when we were teenagers. I looked around the room. The walls were painted a color I picked out 10 years ago. The closet was full of matching skirts. I realized I was packing up a version of Jana that no longer existed. The Jana of the big house was staying here. The Jana of Nebraska was packing only what she needed. I filled 3 boxes. That was it. 3 boxes for 3 decades. I left a lot behind. Clothes I didn't like but wore anyway. Books I was told to read. I wanted to travel light. I wanted to arrive in Nebraska with empty hands, ready to build something new. The morning I left, it was raining. Dad helped load the car. He was quiet. Mom hugged me tight and gave me a bag of snacks for the road. I got in the driver's seat. Stephen was following me in his truck. I backed out of the driveway. I looked at the house in the rearview mirror, the massive steel building, the cross on the lawn, the gate. I didn't cry. I just exhaled. I turned onto the highway. Arkansas started to fade behind me. Mile 10, mile 50, mile 100, crossing the state line into Missouri. I felt a physical weight lift off my chest. I turned on the radio. I rolled down the window. The air smelled different. I was driving toward a house where I would be the wife, the mistress of my own home. I was driving toward Jana. Nebraska is flat. That was my first thought. In Arkansas, we have hills and trees that hide things. Here, you can see the horizon for miles. It felt like the sky was bigger. We pulled up to the house. It wasn't a mansion. It wasn't a warehouse. It was a white farmhouse with a black roof and a porch that wrapped all the way around. Stephen had hung a wreath on the door. I got out of the car. My legs were stiff from the 7-hour drive. He walked over, took my hand, and unlocked the front door. Click. He didn't carry me over the threshold like in the movies. We just walked in together. The floors were bare wood. The walls were clean and white. It smelled like fresh paint and lemon cleaner. "Welcome home, Jana," he said, and I burst into tears. Not sad tears. Relief. I was 34 years old, and I finally had a front door key. The first morning, I woke up at 6:00 a.m. out of habit. I lay there waiting for a baby to cry, waiting for a door to slam, waiting for the industrial coffee pot to start hissing. But there was nothing, just the wind outside, just Stephen breathing beside me. I walked into the kitchen. It was empty. No chore chart on the fridge, no list of jurisdictions, no piles of laundry on the sofa. I made a single cup of coffee. Just one. I sat at the small round table by the window and watched the sun come up over the cornfields. I drank that coffee for 20 minutes. Nobody asked me for juice. Nobody asked me to find their shoes. The silence was heavy at first. It felt wrong, like I was forgetting something. But then I realized I wasn't forgetting anything. I was just living with a man who isn't my father. That was an adjustment. I was trained to serve. I was trained that the men sit and the women work. So, the first night after dinner, I automatically stood up to clear the table. Stephen stood up too. "I got the dishes," he said. I froze. "What?" "You cooked," he said. "I'll clean." I almost dropped the plate. I watched him walk to the sink, turn on the water, and start scrubbing. He wasn't doing it to be a hero. He was doing it because we are partners. I sat back down. I watched him, and a knot in my stomach, a knot I didn't even know I had, started to loosen. This wasn't a hierarchy. This was a team. Then came the fun part. Decorating. For years, I decorated the big house, but it was always Duggar style, lots of crosses, lots of quotes on the walls, industrial furniture that could survive 20 kids. But here, I went to the paint store. I stood in front of the wall of colors. I picked a sage green for the living room, not beige. Green. I bought a velvet sofa. A white velvet sofa? The something that would never survive in Arkansas? I hung pictures of landscapes, not just family portraits. I bought plants, so many plants, fiddle leaf figs, monsteras, ferns. The house started to breathe. It didn't look like a TV set. It looked like a sanctuary. Every time I walked past that green wall, I smiled. Because I chose it. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't miss them. The quiet is beautiful, but sometimes it's lonely. I miss the chaos of Saturday mornings. I miss the girls running in to show me a drawing. Thank God for FaceTime. I call them every day, usually around 4:00 p.m., right after school. Jana! Look at my loose tooth! Jana! Look at the cat. I hold the phone up and show them the garden. I show them the cows in the neighbor's field. It's different. I can't hug them through the screen. But in a way, our relationship is better. When we talk now, I'm fully present. I'm not distracted by cooking for 40 people. I'm just listening to them. I'm not their second mom anymore. I'm just their sister. And I think I like that better. Moving here, I thought my job would just be Stephen's wife. But Stephen, he surprised me again. About a month in, he looked at my sketches, plans for a greenhouse business I had drawn years ago, but never showed anyone. Why don't you do it? He asked. Do what? Start the business. Here on the land, I stared at him. In my world, women didn't start businesses. We supported our husbands' businesses. But here I was, standing in Nebraska with acres of soil and a husband who believed in me. So I did it. I registered Jana's Garden, my name, my vision. I'm designing landscapes for neighbors now. I'm selling starter plants at the local market. For the first time, I have my own bank account. I have my own clients. And let me tell you, earning $1 from your own sweat, it tastes sweeter than any allowance. Of course, the internet hasn't stopped. The moment I got married, the clock started ticking. Is she pregnant yet? I see a bump. That was just a burrito, guys. I feel the pressure. I'm 34. I know the biology. But I'm not rushing. For 20 years, I raised babies. I changed thousands of diapers. I rocked crying infants until my arms went numb. I love children. I want to be a mother. But right now, I am enjoying being a wife. I am enjoying sleeping through the night. I am enjoying traveling with Stephen. God will give us children if he wills it. But until then, I am not going to stress. I am going to enjoy the quiet season. Last month, John David and Abby came to visit. Seeing my twin brother. That was the moment I realized how much I missed home. He got out of the truck, looked at the house, looked at the fields, and then looked at me. He didn't say anything at first. He just hugged me. A bear hug. You look happy, Jana. He said I am. I told him, really happy? We sat on the porch for hours, just like old times. But it was different. We weren't plotting how to manage the younger kids. We were talking about our lives. He treated me like an equal, not like the older sister who is still at home. He saw me as an adult, as a woman with her own domain. That validation from the person who knows me best meant everything. I get messages every day from women who are 25, 30, 35, women who feel like they are left over, women who are watching everyone else get the ring, the house, the baby. I know that pain. I know that ache in your chest when you attend another wedding alone. But listen to me, don't settle. Do not marry the first man who asks just to escape your father's house. Do not lower your standards because you are afraid of being alone. I waited 34 years, and there were hard days, but waking up next to a man who respects me, who honors me, who lets me fly, it was worth every single second of the wait. Your timeline is not God's timeline. Breathe, build your garden. He is coming. The sun is setting over the cornfields now. The sky is painting itself purple and gold. I can see Stephen walking up the driveway. He's waving at me. I'm going to go inside now. I'm going to cook dinner, not for 20 people, but for 2. I am Jana Duggar Wissmann. I am a gardener. I am a business owner, a wife, but mostly, I am finally free. Arkansas will always be my history, but Nebraska is my future. Thank you for walking this road with me. And to anyone still waiting for their sunset, keep watching the horizon. It's beautiful.